Howdy there, YouTube. It has been a long time, I know, but you had previously seen me restoring my first ever hand plane, and I think in that last video I said I was going to get some use on it, come back, kind of tell you what I thought after I'd restored everything, and well, a lot of life happened in between, but I'm finally back and ready to talk to you about this. So the interesting thing about this little Stanley number 65 block plane, this was the first one I ever bought at an antique store. I did the full bore restoration on it, sharpened the blade. It worked great. When I was testing it out, I noticed I had a problem with it kind of cutting an angle that I thought might be due to my technique or having the blade set in. And what I ultimately figured out is right in here where the, essentially the frog would be on a standard plane, right? This, the edge of the mouth is essentially the mating surface for the blade in this type of plane. It was machined unevenly. So one edge of the blade was dipping lower and therefore protruding out of the mouth sooner, and I had to take a hand file to that to get it kind of evened out. Once I did that, it started to perform pretty well. So it's been a handy plane. Took a lot of sanding out. That's been my big thing. I hate sanding, and I've been trying to get to the point where I could do less, and thought I'd give the hand planes a try, see how they went. And I've had several projects under my belt now, a couple sets of coffee tables and end tables, and then I did a TV stand and a couple nightstands for the room, our bedroom. So I've kind of been working around, got some more experience with the hand planes, and I'll give you just a minute to decide on whether you think I got more hand planes or went back to sanding. All right, got your bets in? Now I'll tell you that the big thing for me with power tools is making the most use of my shop time that I can. So I don't have, I have a full-time job. I got a kid that I love spending time with, other hobbies that I enjoy. I try and go to the gym and stay in shape. I don't have a lot of shop time, at least not nearly as much as I would like. So power tools have always appealed to me from that perspective, in that they work faster, they work better, and in certain cases, in my mind, just optimize the amount of work I can get done in the little bit of shop time that I have. So I don't know if that changes your answer, but well, here's what happened. Any of you who bet on more hand planes, you are absolutely right. I went in not quite full, with both feet, but I have definitely expanded my hand plane collection quite a bit. Obviously, I have not gone the Renaissance woodworker route where I use only hand tools. I don't have the, well, honestly, I just don't have the patience for that. I mean, even if I could develop the skill, it's just not something again, I want to maximize that shop time as much as I can. But just using this little block plane, what I kind of figured out is that there's actually things they do better and faster than power tools, and I do really hate sanding, so I found a number of ways to use them to get out of that, and that kind of what drove me the way I did. Now, the second plane that I bought was this Stanley number 4. It's an old one, 1918 or something like that. It's a type 11, I think. I bought it already restored from a guy on Lumberjacks, and I just figured it's a good all-around plane for a lot of tasks. Grabbed this, started to figure out that this is more efficient at taking saw marks off of the edges of boards and doing all kinds of things. And once I figured out how to get it sharpened and tuned up fairly well. I've actually completed a couple of projects now where I didn't surface sand anything at all. I just was able to kind of smooth it out using this and be done, be ready for like a top coat finish like shellac or something like that. So this one definitely gets a lot of use, although I did not decide to invest the time in restoring it. I was feeling pretty good about that, and I was at an antique store and I saw a number 5 off-brand type plane that I decided I'd pick up and try and make that my third plane and just use it. I did a really bad job of picking that one out. There were some wrong parts on it, and there were no missing parts, but the screw was the wrong length for the cap iron, so it just, or the lever cap rather, so the bottom line is I could never make the thing work. I only spent 20 bucks on it, so it was, you know, an inexpensive lesson. The next plane that I added after that was actually just kind of on chance. This Stanley number 7, also a Type 11. I found it at another antique store, really rusty. I got it for a pretty good price, I'd say. I think I paid maybe $60 or $70 for it. And it cleaned up real nice. The bottom flattened out pretty nice. You can see it's got a little bit of a hollow here, but there's some good, a lot of the toe is flat and the heel is flat, and there's 2 flat rails leading back there. It's nice and flat around the mouth. It actually works really well. I don't use it that much, but I grabbed it. And I have used it for certain things, like I had to cut a very slight taper into a board, a plywood shelf, in order to get it to fit between 2 legs that were, you know, out by I don't know, a 64th or a 32nd or something like that, in terms of the front opening was slightly wider than the back opening. And you know, this was really a great tool for that job because it kept that edge nice and straight, and I could plane right to a little line that I snapped and everything. And I don't know if I'd have been able to do it with the number 4, which was the only other one I had at the time. Then I added this guy, Harbor Freight Special, the number 33 Windsor plane from Harbor Freight. I saw a video by Stumpy Nubs on how to cut a camber into the blade and use it as a scrub plane, and that's exactly what I did. I just kind of, my brother had a grinder, went over there and ground a radius on that and sharpened it back up to use it as a scrub plane. I actually did that for a specific project that I had. I had a 9-inch wide maple board that I was going to use for the side of my nightstands in the bedroom, and I only have a 6-inch wide joiner. Interestingly enough, to all of the guys out there who say, you know, buy at least an 8-inch joiner, I just thought it was kind of amusing that even if I had bought an 8-inch joiner, it would have been too small. So I feel like it's just one of those things where no matter how wide your joiner is, you will always find a board for your project that is too wide. So anyway, a little aside there. What I was able to do is scrub down one side of it so it laid flat on my table saw and didn't rock at all when I pushed on it in any place. And then I was able to run it through my jointer, my planer, and get one side flat, flip it over, and get the other side flat. So saving me having to cut that board down, flatten it out, and then glue back up a panel that was as wide as I needed. So for I think I was not able to get this on sale, so it was like 14 bucks plus the coupon. You know, it was like a $12, $11 plane, something like that, and it actually does its job just fine. I think the plane that I added after that was actually a birthday present. This one my wife and daughter got me for my birthday back in August, and it is the Lee Nielsen number 62 low angle jack plane. It's got sawdust in it still, there are shavings in it still. I've got 2 blades for this guy. I've got a one that I've honed to 35 degrees. It gives me a 47 degree effective cutting angle, and then the other one is a 25 degree bevel, which I would use for shooting end grain if I ever actually build a shooting board. But anyway, they bought it for me for my birthday. It was a great gift. It's my first new plane, and I gotta say, I really love this thing. I mean, you know, it's a number 5, it's a jack plane. I really understand that now that I have it. There's really a million different things you can do with this. When I built my workbench, what this is sitting on right now, I was able to, you know, plane the vice chops perfectly parallel with the top of the table, and it's just a little bit heavier, a little bit easier to use than the number 4, which could also do that, but I can really use it for just about anything and keep that number 4 now for more of the finer work, you know, and I really enjoy it. So I've added a few more things since then. I took a work trip where I had to drive a bunch of miles, and I got paid mileage, so I was able to buy this shoulder plane from Veritas. It's the medium-sized shoulder plane. Kind of a guilty pleasure type of thing where I haven't really used it very much, but you know, I had kind of some one-time mad money to spend, and that's what I spent it on. I have started going to mortise and tenon for a lot of my projects now, so I'm sure I will use it more than I have, but I kind of had all the tenons cut on the last project, bought this plane, and I haven't really started the next project yet. But it is, it's a nice one as well, very well put together. This was the second new plane that I ever got, so very nice. And then I picked up a, I can't remember what order I got these in now. I think the next thing I got was this cabinet scraper. Guy on Lumberjacks was starting a tool sale business. It was like old time tools or something like that. And I thought about getting one of these because my hands get really tired using a card scraper really fast. I've got a fair amount of hand strength, but it wasn't pleasant. So I bought this guy, and I've messed with it some. It's great for cleaning up small areas and taking glue off and doing things like that. I haven't used it for finishing yet. I suspect the blade, this old blade that it has in there, is not super great. I've got it honed up, and I've got the edge curled over and everything, and it cuts, but to make it fine enough for surface finishing, I think I'd have to do a lot of lapping at the back to get some you know, little scratch marks and pits and stuff out of there. But for rougher work, it works great. I picked up this, again, this was another antique store find. As I got more familiar with the planes, I got better able to evaluate them at the antique store and figure out which ones were likely to work and which ones weren't. This is a Ward's Master, which is basically like a Stanley Victor number 3, and I thought it would be maybe about the right size for my daughter to mess around with when she was out here. And it's in pretty good shape. It really didn't require much cleaning up at all. Now the funny thing about this plane is when I picked it up, I noticed that the previous owner actually had the blade in there backwards, and I think he must have actually used it that way, and probably, I don't know, not often, or been very frustrated while he was using it, because this is a bevel down plane, and it doesn't cut real well with the bevel up. And the side effect of that is that the back of the blade has been rounded to the point where when I try and hone the back flat, it's actually probably a good 1/8 or at least a 1/16 of an inch back from the edge. So there's a nice curve there on the edge. You could imagine as that was going through the wood, there's no clearance angle there when it's in there bevel up, so it was really eroded back there. And I was able to sharpen the front bevel, put it in the right way, and it still cuts pretty good. You can tell it's not quite leaving as fine a surface as it should be. So I'm either going to have to, on this one, put a back bevel on it to, you know, essentially cure that rounded off section in the back, or just go ahead and get a new blade. Since it's just for my daughter to mess around with at this point, I haven't been too super worried about it. $40 or $35 or whatever for a new blade is like not quite twice, or not quite half, or sorry, a little more than half of what I paid for the plane. So that's another option, but haven't been in a hurry to do it. And yeah, so that's working out great. Oh, I forgot one. Hold on, I'll be right back. Router plane. I got this one somewhere in that mix too, and I can't believe I forgot about this because this is a really great plane as well. The interesting thing, so I said I hate sanding, and that was one of my motivations for getting into the hand planes. What I also hate is using my router. It is, in my mind, just the most dangerous thing in this shop, and so I really limit its use as much as I can. And I know you could call it irrational fear. I mean, you watch YouTube, you work in your own shop, you know, people use routers safely all the time. I know the safety rules and all that stuff is still just makes me more nervous than using the table saw or the band saw or anything else. So I thought, you know, there's some fine work I could do with this guy that would reduce the amount of times I turn to the power router. And it's pretty much true. I've used it to clean up the bottom of dados cut on the table saw. I've cut dados with it just by itself. You know, I've cleaned up the insides of hinge mortises and things with it. It's a really good all-around useful tool. I want to get the inlay thing. This is a Veritas also. They have an inlay head for this, which kind of scores a strip for your inlay, and then you come back with the router plane and plane out the groove, and it looks totally awesome. So I haven't gotten, usually not that fancy with my projects, but eventually I'd like to add that to the mix. Excuse me. So the problem I have now is that I've been kind of piling these up on the shelf, and the pile is getting a little bit high. And so what I'm doing here is laying out a plane board for the wall, like plain till. It's not really going to be a cabinet because I just want it to be open faced. But I think that's what I'm going to do here. I've kind of got my maximum dimensions marked out on this sheet of 5/8 inch Baltic birch, and I'm just going to kind of see where this whole thing takes me and get something laid out. I'm going to leave some space for a couple extras. You could imagine that I have enough planes, but I'm already thinking of two more that I might like to get. The first one would be a dream type plane, and I would have, I mean, other than the one that I got for my birthday here, I'd have almost as much in that plane as in the other new planes that I bought. Would be a bronze body number 4 Lee Nielsen with the high angle frog. I had noticed planing some figured maple, even some not so figured maple, the grain is just constantly reversing, and my number 4, when it's really sharp and finely set, it does a good job most of the time, but there were a few spots where it would just tear out no matter which direction or how slow or how fine I came at it. So thinking, you know, it'd be a guilty pleasure type of thing, but that would be an awesome plane to have someday. And the other plane I was considering getting was the Veritas plow plane. They have, you know, for kind of grooves or tongues, or they have beading attachments for it. It just seems like it'd be pretty, you know, pretty versatile again. And I would not, again, I could do that with my router. Maybe maybe I'll just go that way, set up a router table that I enjoy using more or something like that, or maybe I'll invest in that plane. So we'll see, but I want a little bit of room for expansion. One guy that's not a plane, this was another Christmas gift. It's a Spokeshave. The one thing my planes let me down on was cutting helping me smooth like the inside of a radius cut like this. So when you're making like a stretcher or something for a table, you might put a little decorative arch in it and on an inside curve. None of my hand planes obviously could get in there. I tried doing it with a card scraper. If the curve, this guy's flat enough that it can't really help either. So I thought, well, for Christmas, maybe I'll put on my Christmas list a round bottom Spokeshave, and lo and behold, here it is. Only had it for a couple days, and I just tested it out on this scrap, and it seems like it's going to do what I wanted it to do. So I'll add that to the plane board as well. I'm thinking slots up here, and then down at the bottom where I can slide in some drawers. So I'm going to play with laying this out and then kind of come back and show you what I came up with.